Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone out there in football land. It is officially 10 o'clock here in the Mountain Time Zone, noon out east, which typically on Saturdays in the fall mean that is time for the first kickoff of the day, usually a good time. So Saturday is always game day. Hopefully we have some game days to look forward to. My name is Corey Luxner, side judge from the Big 12 Conference. I want to welcome you to today's session. We will be talking about blindside blocks. I hope you all are doing well out there. I hope that everyone is happy and healthy as we endure the pandemic that is coronavirus. But we're here to talk about some football, so let's get into this today. Let me get the slideshow up and going. This is my rookie um, presentation here, so let's see how I do this. All right, we'll go to the next one. Blindside blocks. Prior to the 2019 season, the NCAA Rules Committee defined a blindside block in Rule 237, as well as created a foul and penalty for an illegal blindside block in Rule 9118. The the basis of this rule, it was created with player safety in mind because last year was kind of that off year where the only changes that can be made, or as if they have they had a rule change, it didn't meet its intended purposes, or as in this case, it was player safety related. So that is why this rule came to be. We've had the term blindside block in our repertoire, in our vocabulary for a while, but that was in regard to targeting. So let's quickly, before we get too deeply into this, let's make sure we all have the definition of a blindside block. This is Rule 237. A blindside block is an open field block against an opponent that is initiated from outside the opponent's field of vision or otherwise in such a manner that the opponent cannot reasonably defend himself against the block. Obviously, Rule 2 is super important to what we do. When I study the rule book, I think you need to start with Rule 2 and Rule 10 because those really set the foundation for how you go throughout the rest of the book, which obviously translates to how you officiate once the game starts. So a big component of this definition is the outside the opponent's field of vision. That and the fact that a player cannot defend himself, that's the type of block that we're looking for, kind of that decleating type of block, and have some examples of that coming up here in a second. Going on to Rule 9, 9118, that's all of our personal fouls. That's typically where you find, that's what you'll find in Rule 9. Rule 9118 states, no player shall deliver a blindside block by attacking an opponent with forcible contact. Of course, it's the NCAA rulebook, so we have a list of exceptions. Number one, the runner. Okay, so you can still deliver a blindside block which against the runner in the means of getting him to the ground and tackling him. And the second exception is a receiver in the act of attempting to make a catch. Now, obviously, when we talk about a receiver receiving a blindside block, there's some other things that will come into play with that, namely targeting. So yes, you can blindside block. You can hit that receiver in the act of making a catch from outside his field of vision. Uh, that's allowed by rule. Obviously, in those types of situations, we will be looking for any type of indicators of targeting. So just keep that in mind. The note at the bottom, at the end of that rule, talks about targeting. In addition, if this action, meaning the action of a blindside block, meets all the elements of targeting, it is a blindside block with targeting. And obviously, I think most of us know now that the targeting rules are 913 and 914. So we know where to go with that. If we have a blindside block with targeting, obviously those that are working within the realm of instant replay, that would go to replay and they could review the targeting aspect, but the blindside block is not reviewable. So what are we looking for when it comes to blindside blocks? Obviously, we've talked about the outside the defender's field of vision. We typically talk about that 10-2 range, which we've become familiar with the blocks below the waist. The same type of philosophy applies when we're talking about blindside block. We're also looking for a forcible contact. So, that decleating, that just, hey, guy never sees it coming and he is ass over tea kettle. attacking action. You know, we can still we want to see some type of violence to that, and obviously that can be subjective, but we'll see some of the hits that are intended to be out of the game coming up here in a little bit. Some of the things we're looking for that are acceptable are more of that shield. I know some of the coaches out there call it the prayer block, where you know the defender has the guy lined up, but instead of blowing him up, just kind of shields in front of him. Some players have their hands up in the air. This typically is legal. We're also looking for extended arms, so the hands out in advance of the body. That is usually going to present more of a legal opportunity for a blindside block. You know, we don't want to see forearms. We don't want to see leading with the shoulder. So those are the things that we'll be looking for in terms of ruling on a blindside block. How do we pick up these blocks? Many times, if you know, the majority of times, this foul will be picked up by the official or officials away from the immediate action. We're looking for our good friend out here in Denver, Terrence Miles, an outstanding back judge. He's currently in the NFL. He coined the phrase, you know, you look for those players that are swimming upstream or going against the grain. And those type of players are the ones that are more suspect for this blindside block type of action. And we'll see a few examples of that once we get to the plays. If our mechanics are solid, if our visual mechanics are solid, multiple officials could have a great look at these type of plays, and we'll give that as examples because these typically, you know, this has to be, as the rule states, an open field block. So we're not looking inside interior line play. We're looking, you know, deep downfield, change of possession plays, punt plays, kick plays, things where there's a lot of space between players that can bring up this type of block. So I'm going to show you some plays, but we're going to start off with a poll here, and this is an easy one. It's a true false, and it simply says all blindside blocks are illegal. So we're looking for true or false, and while you guys think about that, we'll roll a video, and these are some of the good old-fashioned plays that are no longer wanted in our game, but back in the day. They were kind of the ooh block. So here you go. I'll let you guys enjoy this while you're working on that poll.
And Kenny Bell, Turner, touchdown Nebraska. That's the best block we've seen this year. Flag on the play.
Watch at the end of the play as Turner catches the football. Listen.
That's football. Charles, it's football. What is he supposed to do?
I'm having trouble absorbing that one because that's a guy chasing a ball carrier.
Third down and 10. McCoy flips it left. Wide open is Davis. He's got a first down. He picks up a block. That'll draw a flag.
Yeah, Marcus Goodwin. You're going to see him up here at the top. The track guy turns into a blocker.
Personal foul. Offense.
Benjamin from the 23. Boom! A big block on the edge as Benjamin gets out near the 40.
On a swivel ear hole deluxe. Oh, Miami right now is just playing fired up football. They're playing fast. Here it is again.
They're showing it again and again on the big screen, and you can hear the crowd reacting.
Oh, that's all.
Avoid some pressure, dancing around, looking for something. Smith gets a great block.
Yeah, he sure did. He had his eyes on Geno Smith and then gets uprooted.
The kick is blocked. It's picked up. Michigan State's got it. Williamson is pushed out of bounds in Baylor territory at the 44-yard line.
All right, so those are the blocks that back in the day, obviously seeing some of that old footage with officials in knickers, it still cracks me up thinking that we wore those. But those are the blocks those are the ones we want out of this game, and I'm going to go ahead and end the polls. We talk about this here. Those are the type of blocks that obviously have no place in today's college football game. Those are the ones that this rule was intended to eliminate. Those slobber knockers, those, you know, like one of the I think Steve Levy said the ear hole shot. We don't want that in our game right now. Obviously, some of the focus is intended to address the concussion issues that are out there in our game. And these type of blocks obviously are more suspect for that and can create that. And so the poll results are in. 91% said, the question was all blindside blocks are illegal. 91% of us said that that is false. And that is the correct answer, because not all, you can still have a block from the blind side, but still be legal. So what can make a legal blindside block? It's not attacking. It's not forcible. Those shield blocks may still come from the blind side, but that is not the type of hit that we're looking for. So I know whenever we get a new rule that comes out, we're super tuned into that. I know last year we had the blindside block and the illegal two-man wedge on kickoffs. So everybody in those first couple, 3-4 games, we're really tuned into that. And so we want to make sure now that we have a year of seasoning under our belts with blindside block that we're not calling every blindside block as a foul, because they're just not all going to be fouls in that manner. So as let's go ahead and move on, and we'll get into our plays here, and we'll talk about kind of the elements of a blindside block. So we're going to have our first poll up here, then I'll start a play. We're going to be looking at 2 blocks, one at the A30 yard line, one at the A38, and you're going to be asked, which of these presents itself as a foul for a blindside block. So we're going to go to Pullman, Washington. Last year, this is week 1 action, and we'll let you guys look at this, and then you guys can start to vote from there. As I say, the first block is going to present itself right around the A30. You'll see this a couple times. I'll re-loop it back, then the next one's at the A38. So we'll come back here, kind of stop it, pause it, show you the players that we're looking at and where I want your eyes to be looking in terms of determining, are these a blindside block or not. So first one, little crossing pattern, receiver comes up that 30-yard line, delivers a block. And then we have the next guy lining up. This player that's at the 40 now, he can't see him. So that aspect of the block is something that we're looking for. We didn't see much. You don't see much on the end zone angle, so we'll just go straight to get a little bit more on the TV shot here. Number 9 does come across, and then you kind of get the back end of that second block by number 16. So we can go back here and start that one again, so you guys can keep looking at as we discuss this play. And so we'll go ahead and shut the poll down and see what you guys think here. We'll give you a couple more seconds. Make sure you have enough time to look at this. Give you one more shot ad, then we'll end the poll. So obviously you're looking for, outside of the field of vision of these players. I think both of these would meet that criteria, the definition of a blindside block. Both of these defenders that are getting blocked, they don't see these blocks coming, but that's just step 1. So what else are we looking for? We're looking for force. We're looking for that attacking nature. And so ending the poll, 89% of us thought that neither block was a foul for blindside block. A couple thought that first block at the 30 could be a block of any legal blindside block. So we'll go ahead and play this again and go through that so that we can talk through that to make sure, what we're looking for. What are the elements? So yes, we discussed that the element of outside the field of vision is definitely present on this first one. The defender does not see that block coming. But now, is that forcible enough? I don't think that that's the type of force we're looking at. When you think about those blocks that we watched just a little bit ago, those really are, this isn't forcible. This is just a good block. I mean, he gets to the side of him. He doesn't attack him. But yes, I can see that one obviously I think presents itself more as a blindside block versus the other. So now when we talk about, the second one, that's obviously, I don't think that any of the element of being outside the field of vision obviously is present, but there doesn't seem to be any type of force. That defender is simple, or that blocker is simply just kind of putting his hands on. I think he's more suspect for a block in the back at that point than anything, but even that would be suspect at best. So with those, obviously on these type of crossing patterns and these multiple receiver sets, once that play develops, the visual mechanics that we're talking about that are needed to officiate this type of play become paramount to us, just like with every other play. And we'll get into some other plays here in a little bit and discuss mechanics a little bit more. So let's go to our next play and our next poll. So we're going to talk. This is a punt play that's coming up, and your question is, or the statement is, the block at the B38 is not an illegal blindside block because it's not a forcible block. Block is not attacking in nature. Block is within defender's frame of vision. And then response number 4 is, what are you talking about? This is an illegal blindside block. So let's go to the play so you can start to see what I'm talking about here. We're going to Knoxville, Tennessee. This was week 2 action last year. Punt from deep in the offensive territory, gets off a good kick. And I'll kind of pause it here and circle the guy that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be focusing on here. So take a look at this play and then tell me what you all think. Results are coming in. We're kind of split. Here's our end zone view. Then we'll get our TV shot, which gives us a couple actually, we don't get a replay on this, but you'll get a little bit more clarity on it. You'll see that Tennessee player coming in, just trying to get that player away from the ball. Obviously, that type of block is allowed. Is it necessary? That could be definitely something that you'd want to talk to the player about. So there wasn't a flag thrown on this. In looking at it, and in looking at the poll results, we'll publish it here in a little bit after this last look. And then we'll re-loop the play so that you all can look. And this is exactly what I thought would happen. I wanted to get some discussion on this, and I thought that there might be some differing opinions, and that's totally fine. I think that we're trying to get consistent, obviously, as I will go ahead and close the poll. 23% said it wasn't a forcible block. I think that could be, what is forcible? That's obviously definitely a very subjective term, what is and what is not forcible. He does knock the defender to the kicking player to the ground. So is that force enough? I mean, if the player goes to the ground, does that necessarily mean that it's a forcible block? I don't think you can say that as a rule of thumb, but because maybe guys off balance because the block is coming from the blind side. While it can be legal, block is not attacking in nature. 54% of us said that it wouldn't be a foul because it's not attacking in nature. I think that that's definitely the presiding notion here, is that it's a block that the Tennessee player number 33 kind of gets his hands out there. Would we like to see those hands be a little bit more extended? I think so. Ideally, we could, but he does get his hand. He's not leading with the forearm. He's not leading with the shoulder. I think this block is definitely outside of number 5's frame of vision. This comes in straight from his 3 o'clock. So I think from the definition of the foul, this definitely is something that we're looking for. And then what are you talking about? This is an illegal blindside block. I tell you, when I first saw this play, after in evaluating the film, I was like, man, I think I missed one like that. And would it be supported as a blindside block? Possibly. Now, is it our telltale, hey, this is a poster child for blindside block? I don't believe that that's the case, but we're talking about all the elements, and I think that was a great play of identifying all of the aspects that you're looking for in terms of a blindside block. We'll look at it one more time just so we can start to, we're setting the foundation as we go through this discussion in identifying what we're looking for. Okay, so outside of the field of vision, yes, of course it is. I think most of us agreed that was the case here. And then we've got to make a decision. That's what we're paid for, is to make these judgments, to make these decisions. Okay, is this forcible enough? Is this attacking enough? And, I subscribe to philosophy that, I've got to be 100% sure to throw a flag. And I'm not, even I know this is a safety foul. We want to err on the side of safety, but it's something that I want to jump out at me to say, yeah, I love that flag. If I don't love something, I don't think I want to put a flag on the ground for it. So I think, going forward, I think I would be okay letting this one go, but I think it's definitely worth a talk to. But then again, do whatever your supervisors want you to do out there. This is just my opinion on this play. So good job. I don't know if we have any questions coming in on any of this. We have our moderators standing by to let me know if we have anything related to this play.
Hey, Corey, man, just great play and great analysis there for us as we work through the elements we're looking for. You mentioned earlier when we were talking about what we're looking for a blindside block, and then some of those you could call them negative indicators that tell us it's not a blindside block. And you spoke to a blocker using his arms more than his body, and then you kind of mentioned that breaking down this play, but you mentioned that we'd like to see the arms extended a little more if we're going to use that, if we're going to hang our hat on that to not make this a foul. Can you just elaborate on the difference here and relative to how he uses his arms versus what we're really looking for to not have a foul?
Absolutely. That's a great point. And so, when we're talking about blindside block and what can be more allowable, we want that defender to kind of come out with his hands, kind of think of a pass interference signal that a referee would get. You want those hands out there in front of them to make that, because what that's going to do, that's going to lessen the forcible contact of the block. The more that those arms are into the body, the more likelihood that there's going to be an excessive amount of force accompanying this block. So that's why we're looking for this. 33, you can see he gets his hands are leading. It's not he's not blowing the guy up with his shoulder, but we would like to see his hands even further out there. And I think that would be a great talking to point with this player and say, hey, 33, you're right on the edge there. I'd like to, with this type of block, this is a new rule. We always have to remember when new rules come out, they're not only new and challenging to us, they're new and challenging to the players and the coaches as well. So the more opportunity that we have to talk to a player and officiate the game without using our flag, I think that presents a better sense of control to the game and a better sense of game management. So hopefully that clears that up, but we're looking for those hands to be ideally a little bit further in advance of the body. So great question. And so let's go on to our next play here. And we do have, I know Tuta loved his poll, so I was like, the guy likes the poll, so I'm going to put some polls out there for everybody. And let's see, where are we at? Okay.
Hey, Corey, I don't want to interrupt you, but before you move on, there was some discussion as well. You mentioned talking to. There was some discussion about what kind of words or verbiage or how would we talk to the player and or talk to the coach. Give us a little example of how you would handle that play right there if we're going to do a talk to.
Okay, you got it. If I'm working that play and I see that and I'm like, man, that was real close, and I want to bring that to his attention. Obviously you want a good break in the action, TV timeout, team timeout, whatever that may be, and go over and ask, the way I do it is I go ask a coach. Coach, I'd like to talk to number 33. Is he available? Can I grab him for 10 or 15 seconds? I don't like to get in the habit of just going into the bench and finding a player. I think that crosses some boundaries. It could ruffle some feathers. Once 33 comes over and say, hey, 33, just want to talk to you about that block. We have a new rule in place right now with blindside blocks that if you're going to hit a guy from that blind side from, outside of, I'd say from the shoulder, from the side, to kind of use their verbiage. I don't want to give him the 10-2. He'd probably look at me like I was nuts. If you're going to hit a guy from the side like that, make sure your hand's out in front of you. Don't blow the guy up. And I think the more that you can use the language that they would be used to, I think that your point's going to be better taken. So does that help with what you're looking for there, Tuta?
Absolutely. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, so let's go to play number 3, and we're going to start to talk a little bit more about mechanics, because obviously the mechanics involved in picking up these fouls are paramount to us. I mean, like we talked about earlier, the vast majority of the time, these type of fouls are going to come from an official who's not directly ruling on that immediate action or the quote unquote covering official. So this next poll for the next play is going to ask which official is in the position to rule on the legality of the block at the A46. And so I'm giving you 5 choices on this one. You have your headline judge, your side judge, your back judge, your referee, and then everyone loves the all of the above. So let's go ahead and get to the video. We are going to go to Ames, Iowa State, Northern Iowa from last year. and let you guys look at this one. That, as with all of them, they'll loop a couple of times so you can start to look at that and then take your answer. So we'll look at this a couple times. This is the first shot at it. Okay, I know that was kind of quick. So what we're looking at is number 4 here at the bottom, right at the 46-yard line. Okay, he's going to start going against the grain, fishing upstream, if you will. And so that's got to be an indicator mechanically that when we see a guy going against the grain of everyone else, that should, kick off some red flags. Some bells and whistles should be going up in our head. And, where do we go from there? And so I'll take you back to the beginning of the video here so that we can see it again before we really dissect the mechanics of this. I want you to have as much opportunity as you can to answer this poll question, because I know this is our first time at mechanics. And so obviously this is early in the game. We have headline judge, side judge down at the bottom of the screen. This is actually play 5 of this game. And so early in the season, early in a game with the new rule, boy, football's a great game that you got to be ready for everything from the get-go. They're not going to let you warm up at all, obviously, and this crew was put to the test right off the bat. So we'll watch this last TV shot, and then we'll close the poll, and then we'll discuss the mechanics a little bit further. So let's go ahead and end the poll here. I think everyone's had enough time, and of course, everyone, us deep guys, we are there to look at this kind of stuff. And, that was the overriding sentiment, was that the side judge should pick this up. Headline judge was given some love. Back judge a little bit. Nobody thought the referee should. And then there was some all of the aboves. And actually in this game, it was the referee that picked up this foul, which I thought was great, because our referees, they have so much on their plate every single play. For this referee to have the presence of mind to look downfield to get this block is really good. And so let's start, and we'll go through this a little bit at a time. So headline judge down there at the bottom. Obviously, you're going to be in charge of the runner. I don't know what happened to our video there. It stopped on me. Start it again. The headline judge down there at the bottom, he's going to be in charge of forward progress. But at this point, once this, the receiver is a runner, he's kind of in air. So I think that he definitely would have a chance to look at that block, to pick that up. His key is coming, in the belt. He should be able to pick that up and have an idea and visually start to look at that. Now, he might be ruling on the catch, so he might get to that block a little bit late. Now let's talk about option number 2, the side judge. Side judge key goes, he's the one that comes in and delivers this block. So I would hope that if I were working this play, that I would still have an idea, okay, where is number 4? Yes, he's in air when this catch happens, and there's no immediate threat, but you always have to have an idea of where your initial key is. I think sometimes we get too locked in on just, oh, he's my key. We've got to get more away from that. The more we can get away from that, the better off we will serve the game. But still, you want to know where that initial key is. The back judge on this play, I believe his key is the one who caught the ball, or his initial key. So obviously he's going to have eyes on that player. So that actually was a line judge's key. I'm sorry, we had trips to that side. So the line judge is coming across. As that pass is delivered, our eyes are going to go to that action. I think the back judge may have a chance, but he's coming, 2/3 over from the field. I think it's going to be tougher for him to pick that up, and to have the referee have the presence of mind on this play to, his quarterback's no longer threatened. It's a clean pocket. He wasn't ever threatened at all, to say, okay, what can I do to help this crew instead of just watching my quarterback stand there? He has the presence of mind to look downfield and to look at this block, and he's the one that picked it up. So, I think the all of the above answer definitely applies. I think if our visual mechanics are able to process our initial action and get beyond that, obviously any one of those 4 officials could have a chance at getting this. And so there are multiple opportunities on this play to get this right, and just thankfully we did get this right. Coach Campbell wasn't a big fan of the call. But I think we can agree from the aspects, there's a lot of the elements that are present there. the defender did not see it coming. It is forcible. I believe that it to be forcible. He's leading with that attacking, shoulder into the midsection, shoulder into the side of the shoulder type of action that would lend itself to be more of an attacking type of style. So while I think, the side judge, I think probably has the best opportunity to see that, it's good, it's good when we're just talking about this type of a play to recognize that there are going to be multiple opportunities to get this type of a foul. So good job on that one and good discussion. I didn't know if there were any questions that came up from this play or not.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey,
Corey.
Corey. Go ahead, Tuta.
The discussion about 10-2. You mentioned 10-2 earlier. You also there's some questions about field of vision. Can you discuss the fact that on this play the contact was from the 10-2 area, but maybe make that distinction between field of vision versus 10-2, because I think there's some questions about that.
You got it. And I earlier when we talk about that 10-2, that's just kind of a guideline, but that's kind of going to be somewhat of an indicator for us. But that doesn't mean that just because you hit somebody 10-2 that's within his field of vision. Because in this play, let's see if I can get it back up here real quick. This play, that defender's focus is not where his body is going. So you can be running one way and looking another. As anybody that's played linebacker, or you study linebacker play, that's normal, that you're going to be scraping down a certain parallel and have your head on that swivel and you're looking back to the quarterback as you're running to the sideline. So while that 10-2 may be an indicator, it's not a set in stone rule. You want to say, okay, where is that defender's attention? What is he looking at? And when we get to the TV, kind of that ISO shot, you'll notice that defender is not he's looking back at that runner while he's scraping laterally towards the sideline. So yes, this may be delivered 10-2, but it is outside of his field of vision because he's looking at an angle different than what the direction of his body. And you'll see here on this ISO kind of what I'm talking about. Hopefully that will clear it up. So don't hang your hat on, he was 10-2, because that's all involved. That's just kind of that, okay, first step. That's kind of an indicator, if you will, as to what could present itself as a blindside block. And you'll see here as we get this ISO, that linebacker's focus is angled away from where his body is, which creates this to be outside of his field of vision.
Corey, let me play the role of the coach. What do you want him to do?
I don't want him to, coach. He doesn't need to blow him up like that. He can come and shield him off. He can come and lead in with the hands, but we don't want him attacking. We don't want him attacking that defender in that manner. This is a new rule for all of us, coach, but you know what? We've got to get that out there, and we got to have less force behind that type of block. And so now all of a sudden the full video is working. So love technology sometimes, but this is kind of the telestrations of what we were talking about here earlier. But in terms of the coaching, yeah, I think you just have to explain that, coach, this is just something that we're getting this away from. We're getting away from this type of block, and then just give them examples of what you're looking for to make that allowable. Good question. Anything else on this play?
Yeah, and then I like how you mentioned talking about, using language that coaches use. And a lot of times when they talk about these kind of blocks, I think what they're trying to teach their guys is to catch the player coming instead of, like you said, go attack him. So if we can start to work some of that terminology into our explanations, kind of closes the gap between officials and coaches in terms of communication. What do you think about that?
100%. I mean, the more that, because let's face it, they're not going to learn our language. I mean, some of them try, but that's not going to be a focus. So the more that we can get on the same page with them from a vocabulary standpoint, and we can say, hey, coach, we're looking for your blocker to catch that guy coming into him, to absorb that impact versus delivering the impact. That's something that's going to speak their language, and it's just going to help in terms of communication, in terms of game management. And let's face it, the more we can manage a game that way, the better off we're going to be, the better rapport we're going to have with coaches, and it just makes us look better. It makes the product that we put on the field that much better. So great job on that one. And then
hey,
let's,
one more thing. You can go ahead and get your next play rolling. Let's give the umpires a little love. The umpires are feeling left out. Sorry, everybody. It's a joke. And I think the question would be, could the umpire get in on some of this? And, we'll leave that to our expert umpires. We do know that as a rule, umpires are working more inside out rather than outside in. So I maybe talk about, we want to see the whole play, right? So we don't just want to work blindside blocks off of collisions only. We have to see the whole play.
100%. And don't worry, umpires. I got some stuff coming up to share your love. I just, I'm not going to leave you out. I promise you that. So,
punch, aren't they?
right, right. So, all right, let's move on to play number 4. Let's see here. Where are we at with the poll? Okay, so this is going to be during a punt return, a long punt return, and your poll question is asking during the return, watch the block at the A37. So just to forewarn you, during this play, it's deeper into the play, asking you, is this block forcible in nature? And so we'll roll the play here. We are going to Waco, Texas, home of Baylor. This was, I think, week 1 or week 2 action last year. University of Texas, San Antonio at Baylor. We have a punt play. So obviously these are the types of plays we're looking at that will present opportunities for blindside blocks, just because there's a lot of open field. And that is one of the aspects of the play. You'll see it coming up here at the A37. Okay, there is a block from the blind side. I believe that we all agree that is outside the field of vision. We'll roll it back again and kind of slow it down. It's a long return. Some other things we could talk about on this play, but this is a blindside block session, so we'll leave that for others. So here's the guy we're looking at right here, and he's got the big lineman in his sights, and he's going to come in from the blind side. Okay, now it does put him to the ground. So is that enough to be forcible? What are we looking for? Like we talked about earlier, just because a player goes to the ground, does that necessarily mean it's forcible or not? I don't think so. I don't know if we can use that as a standard to say, oh, the guy went to the ground, it must be forcible. We have to use some of our judgment in there to say, okay, what else could have caused him to go to the ground? Was he off balance? Things of that nature. So, he doesn't get decleated. I think he gets hit, stumbles, and then goes to the ground because, he's a lineman. He's not known to have the best footwork, the best feet when it comes to doing that. So watch this last TV view, and then we'll close the poll. So get your votes in here. Let your voices be heard, and then we'll kind of dissect the play a little bit further from that, from both a element of blindside block and the mechanics involved. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And we were sitting right around 50-50 to begin with, but it ended up 60% of us thought that this was not forcible, and the other 39% of us thought that it was forcible. Now, so let's go back to the start of the play here. And what are we looking for? Obviously, with blindside block, we're going back to those elements. We're looking for outside the frame of vision. I think we can agree that is outside the frame of vision. That kicking team player is focused on the runner, and that block is delivered from outside of that. Even if we're looking at that initial indicator of the 10-2, that is outside the 10-2 focus. So that element, we can check that box, if you will. That's outside. So the next thing we have to go through, is this forcible or is it attacking? We'll see as we go through it in the TV shot. I think there's from the end zone shot, you can see that he's out there with his hands. So that attacking element really starts to take a back seat. Okay, he is leading with the hands, and why'd this stop again? Okay, I see what you went through with this, Tuta. So is this forcible or not? Let's see if I can get forward in this video a little bit. We'll go to this TV view. Sorry about this. Here's our TV view, and you'll get a good shot on the replay, and then we'll start to talk about the mechanics. Obviously, we're going to talk about punt plays here. I think this coming week, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we'll talk a little bit more about punts. But that's when mechanics are, they're turned around, they're flipped around, reverse mechanics. We're actually having a session next Saturday on reverse mechanics. So we'll talk, we'll talk more about that next week. So who is going to see this? Who's going to be ruling on these long type of punt returns? Okay, going up the sideline, obviously side judge, field judge, you're going to have progress. You're going to have that sideline. Our line judge out in front of the play. This is exactly where we want him looking, is at that block. We have our center judge that can be focused in on that. Referee doesn't have much he could be looking over at that. Our umpires, that might be a little bit too far away from them because they've got all those players in between. And so obviously the side judge is working up the sideline. But as you can see, we have at least 2, if not 3 officials that should be looking in on this action to be able to determine and go through the process. Okay, is this outside the field of vision? Is it attacking? Is it forcible? To me, I don't think that this would qualify as forcible, just because it's a decent effort on the blocker's part to not attack him. Yes, the guy does go to the ground, but I think there's other factors at play in this make that player go to the ground. So, any questions on this one from out there in the world?
Hey, Corey, got a question that's maybe applicable to all of these blocks as we work through them. Really came up with a previous play, but we can talk about it in reference to this too. But just in general, last year, our first year working through this block and this idea of field division, we didn't talk much, and maybe because it's a little bit dangerous, so get into it as much as you think you should, about an element of time, right? So if I'm receiving a blindside block and I kind of look up and my life flashes right before my eyes, right before the lights go out, does that count as no longer field division because I saw this guy coming to take my life away? Or if I see him one step, like how do you start working through that on the field?
That's a great point, Daniel. And I think that element of time, we'll just go down that road, is definitely applicable. Going back to the definition of the rule, it talks about outside the field of vision or having a reasonable chance to defend themselves. So if you're looking one way, but at the very last second you see the guy coming and you turn, is that enough time to defend yourself? I would argue that is not. So we'll have a play coming up here in a little bit that will kind of emphasize that fact that, okay, yes, this guy may not be seeing it coming initially, but had chance to see it coming, and hopefully then we can relate the two to say, okay, this one, compare the two, that this guy did have enough time. But to your point, yes, there has to, that element of time is definitely going to play a fact, just because, play a factor in this. Just because you turn your head at the very last second, that doesn't absolve, it may absolve the field of vision, but it doesn't meet the definition of the reasonable time to defend himself. So does that hit that question?
I think that's perfect. That idea of enough time to defend yourself. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So we will move on here. We got play number 5 coming up. And we do have a poll for this one. We love our polls here at Webinar Jam. And let's see I got to find which the correct one is here. So, all right, we're going to be talking about mechanics again on this one. And so this time, umpire, you're in the mix. So let's let your voices be heard. What we're asking here is which official has the best chance of picking up this blindside block foul at the A28 yard line? And our choices here are going to be line judge, field judge, umpire, back judge, center judge. So there's 5 opportunities on this. And this play is a great one to discuss mechanics, because there are a lot of things going on here. So we're going to go to Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is TCU at Oklahoma State from middle of the season last year. And the great thing about film from Oklahoma State is we're going to get both sides of the angle, because TV's on one side and coaches' film's on one side. So we're going to look at this a couple of times from a couple of different angles and go from there. So we got some votes coming in already. I think we're just voting for our favorite position. That's good. Got to stuff the ballot box where you can. So here comes the play, so you guys can take a look at this. I'll circle the blocker we're talking about. It's right there, right at that near side hash. Coming back, and I think from an element standpoint, I think we can agree that's outside the field of vision. Defender did not have a chance to reasonably defend himself. That was attacking, that was forceful. So from an element standpoint, I think we could all agree that yes, these have all the elements of a blindside block. So now let's talk about the mechanics and how we see this. And so we'll have our reverse angle here from the headlines line judge side of the field. We have double. And so the key that is responsible for this is that the head line's been coming across. because we have our field judge at the bottom there. Back judge would have that tight end. And we'll go through this. Back judge is right here. Line judge will have that back. We'll have the headline judge. We'll have the second guy into the top. And then last but not least, the side judge will have the number one receiver to the top of the screen. So those are our initial keys. But like we talked about, everybody has that's their initial key. So now where is our area of responsibility as this play develops? Okay, we have a crossing route. So right then and there, we're going to have a switch, on between the back judge and the headline judge. They're going to be switched. Once, we'll talk about passing keys and when to switch at a later date. But now, when the switch happens, the back judge now is looking at that player. So should have a good idea of what this player is going to do throughout this play. He should have an eye on that he's going against the grain. He's swimming upstream, and whenever we have a play like that, we want to pay attention to that. Line judge, he's probably going to be out of this. He's got a runner encroaching the sideline. He's backing up to get out of the way, so I don't think the line judge is going to have much of an opportunity to see this. The field judge, he could definitely have an opportunity to get this because his initial key isn't doing anything, and this is kind of his focus. The center judge he has nothing in front of him. He can look outside. Umpire can look in there because he has nothing to worry about. So this is a great play to illustrate that on any given opportunity, we can have 4 or 5 officials with a great look at this type of block. I think the back judge, field judge definitely are going to have the best opportunity just because they see more of the entire action. Whereas the umpire and center judge, they're clearing their initial action, then bouncing out to that. Because as we work from inside out in the umpire case, you're clearing, and then when you get there, did you see all of that? And obviously, we don't want anyone to get in the habit of throwing flags on partial information. So let's reloop this play so we can start to talk about it a little bit more, and we'll end the poll. Oh, we got to start the video first. So we'll end the poll. And we had 40% thought that the back judge should be in there. 22% thought the umpire should get it. So our umpires letting their voice be known. Then the field judge came in at 18 and the center judge at 16. So, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about here on this play. We do have 4 officials that have a bona fide opportunity. And if their visual mechanics are solid, and if they're looking where they need, and when we talk about visual mechanics, we're talking about, okay, where are you looking? Not so much your physical mechanics of where your body is, but where are your eyes looking? Those 4 officials definitely have an opportunity to get that. So this is a play that, we see many times. You can see this type of play 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times during the course of any college football game. So use this one as you're preparing for the season ahead of you. If you work these positions, okay, what are your indicators? What are you going to be looking for? And so if you're that back judge and you see that guy, you've done your switching, then all of a sudden your guy's going against the grain of every other player on the field, that should set off some red light should go off. Say, I need to watch this guy. He's got a brick in his hand, is what one of our evaluators, Greg Myers, likes to talk about. That this guy's got a brick in his hands. What's he going to do with it? He's a bad actor. So I think we're all getting on the same page in terms of where people should be looking on this play. So are there any questions out there in regard to this play?
I think you covered it, Corey. Let's move along.
All right, let's go on then. All right, we're going to go to play number 6, and we're going to talk a little bit. Let's go to our next poll. And it's going to talk about our field of vision that we talked about just a little bit ago. So watch the block at the B5. Is this block within the defender's field of vision? Yes, legal block, no, illegal block. And we'll go to, let me get out of this video and go to the next one. And we will go back to Pullman, Washington State, New Mexico State. Again, this was a week 1 game. So this is a long developing play, and the only shot that really gives us a chance to coach from it is this coach's sideline because it shows all the action. So long developing play. The block's going to happen right around the 6-7 yard line coming up. and we'll reloop it here and highlight the player that we're looking at so you can decide if this is or is not within the field of vision of the defender that is getting blocked. Okay, coming up right there. We're watching these two players right here. As this play develops, yes, that player's going against the grain. But is it within in Daniel's point earlier, was it in the field of vision? I would say probably it is, and we'll go to the poll here and close it out here in a little bit, but I'll give you one last chance to look at this before we tally up the results. This player, he's looking that way. The block is delivered from in front, so that 10-2 marker is satisfied, but is the reasonable chance to defend himself satisfied? And we'll go ahead and end the poll. 98% of us thought that this was a legal block, and I would agree 100%. This guy, they're going the same way. That the defender's going away. His attention is that way. He sees this block coming, and you'll notice that he'll even kind of stop and try to get out of the way a little bit. That's a good indicator that a defender has a chance to reasonably defend himself. Those are the types of actions you're looking for. So that if comparing that to the Iowa State play earlier, where did the guy, that was 10-2, but he didn't have a chance to defend himself because that defender in that case, he didn't make any type of movement that would say, hey, I saw this coming, I protected myself, I got out of the way, got my hands up. Whereas in this play, the defender definitely sees the block coming, is able to defend himself and go from there. So good job on this one. I think we all are on the same page. And so of the 400 plus people on this, to see that type of consistency, that's a great sign to know that that's what we're looking for in terms of a blindside block. So we'll go to our next play, kind of along the same lines. There's no poll involved with this one, so I'll give you a little break on the poll, but I got another video that kind of along the same way, and it's going to start to incorporate a lot of these things that we've talked about, not, the elements, the mechanics, all of that. And so we'll talk about this one and go through, but I want you to kind of look at it. This is late in the season last year. This is TCU at Oklahoma. I believe this is week 11 or week 12, somewhere in that nature. Again, a long developing play. So if you notice an overriding thing, a lot of these blindside blocks will have an element of time where they set themselves up, and you can see right from the get-go, we have a receiver going against the grain at the bottom of the screen, and we'll slow it down again here for you coming up so you can take a look at it. And we're going to compare this one to that play we just saw at New Mexico State in terms of field of vision. And, obviously we'll talk about the forcible nature of it, and then, talk about the mechanics. So here comes our guy going against the grain. He's going, we've got 21 players going towards the end zone. This one guy's going the opposite direction. So that should stand out to you that, hey, we've got this guy going the wrong direction. He is looking to cause mayhem. And so who's going to see that? And so as we slow this down coming up, you'll see that, comparing this one to the Washington State play, the one we just looked at, this defender his focus is on that runner going out of bounds. He does not see this blocker coming. And so that is forcible. There is that attacking nature. There is no trying to catch the guy. There is no shielding. This is the intention is to knock this guy, head over heels, and he achieves his goal, but that is no longer allowed. And for this, this was a late in the season game. So to see this happening this late was, we would have hoped that this block would have been avoided, but it obviously wasn't. Now we talk about the mechanics of this, and this is where, you umpires, this is where I was going to sing your praises, because we have a flag here from side judge and umpire. Obviously, when you have two flags on the ground from two different, we want to get together, make sure we have the same thing. From an enforcement standpoint, this foul occurred behind the end of the run, so we had to make sure we were going the right direction. So whenever you do have those two flags down, make sure we get into that habit. Then, but then let's talk about, we'll see here as we slow it down, number 26 from TCU, his full focus is right ahead of him towards that runner, and number 2 is coming back against that. So that is completely different than what we saw at the Washington State play. These are the types of things we're looking for: forcible, outside the field of vision. These are the types of blocks that we want to get. And so from a mechanic standpoint, we're talking deep down the field. So who's going to have a chance to see this? We start this play at the A49 yard line, and we end down near the B10. So who's going to look at this? We have our head line judge. He is worried about that sideline. He's worried about progress. His sole focus is going to be that. He's not going to have a chance to look out in front of that, but we have other officials that can. We have a back judge. We have an umpire, and we have a side judge that all should be focusing on that because there's nothing else to look at. Even have our field judge up at the top that he could have an idea of that. Granted, that's a long look, but the idea is to get that right. But so we can pretty much discount the headline judge for being any type of help on this block because he's got other things. Side judge, you don't have to worry so much. We don't have progress until inside the 2, so we let that go. But those other 4 officials, you have a chance. And so we did have 2 flags on that. It's good to see. We could have had 3, we could have had 4, and that would have been great as well. So I know we went through 2 plays there. Are there any questions that have come up on this one from our moderators?
Talk about the reporting process of that last play. Side judge has a flag, umpire has a flag. How do you, as the calling official, kind of navigate through that with your umpire?
So when the umpire comes in and the side judge come in and we have the same flag, we got to first and foremost, the way I say, my flag is for blindside block number 2. What is your flag for? Umpire says, I have same thing. So you want to make sure you're talking about the same thing there. And then after that, we want to make sure, okay, are our flags aligned? Are we in the right spot? And then we go, so we want to figure that part out before we even go to the referee, because we got to have our story straight, for lack of a better word. We got to know what we're talking about. And so that is the process of this. We'll get, as this goes through. Luckily, the flags were pretty much in the same spot. It's very rare that you'll have a deep wing and an umpire on a flag together. So, but those situations will present themselves in any type of a game. You can have a back judge and a referee have a flag down on the same type of play during a kickoff. So the more obscure that combination of who's throwing the flag may be makes us have to talk even that much more. So as you come in, make sure you've got the same flag, make sure you're talking about the same thing, and then go to the reporting process. Make sure you know the result of the play. Make sure you know the spot of the foul, because as you can see on this, the spot of the foul is behind where the runner goes out of bounds. So for our 3-and-1 principle, we're going back to that spot of the foul and go from there. So I think we went from the 16 yard line on this one, 15 yards back. So does that address the penalty enforcement and reporting?
Yeah, excellent. And then, referees just kind of sense the timing of these flags. Look, I know we're not watching our crewmates throw flags, but you can just have a sense of how the games flow, and these guys throw the flag basically at the same time, so that's a pretty good indicator that they have the same foul. It's late in the play, so it's probably going to be a blocking foul. Get your wheels spinning, on the proper enforcement, communicate, and let's be efficient with this. So good job, Corey.
Perfect. All right, so let's move on, and we will go to our last play of the day, our last poll of the day. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us today. Talking a little football on Saturday, because Saturdays are game days. So let's go to our last poll. We're going to ask you to evaluate the block at the A15, and this is a play we talked about from a different standpoint a couple of weeks ago. And so your choices are: this is not a foul for a blindside block because the defense is allowed to block an eligible receiver in this manner. Not a foul for blindside block because receiver runs into the defender. And a foul for BSB because it meets all the elements of a foul. So let's go to the video, and we are going to go back to Ames, Iowa. This is Oklahoma at Iowa State. Now, this is from last year. This is, or 2 years ago, 2018. So this is obviously prior to the rule being implemented for blindside block, but we'll run it for you there the first time, then we'll run it back and show you where we're looking so that you can have a chance to vote. Trips to the top, single wide receiver to the bottom, single back. So we're looking at this defender coming in right here, right around the 18-yard line, and he's going to introduce himself to this Oklahoma receiver running laterally at the 15. So from an element standpoint, is this outside the field of vision? Yes, 100% it is. That receiver focus is completely back towards his quarterback, as all good receivers should be. He's looking for the ball when he just gets decleated. And so you compare that to the hits that we saw earlier with, the old time videos. This is one of those hits. These are the ones that we want to get out of it. And so the question is defense, are they prohibited from delivering these types of blocks too? I mean, because it is legal to block a receiver as long as you're not holding or if the ball's not in the air, you can block that receiver as long as you're not on the defender's not on the same yard line. So can the defense be held liable for an illegal blindside block as well? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. So we're going to play this one last time, give you a chance to get your last votes in. Loving how these results are coming in. It's a great way to end today's session. So go ahead and end this poll. 98% of us thought that this was a foul because all of the elements are met. So that's great. That's great consistency. Yes, everything that applies to an offensive block applies to a defensive block in terms of blindside block fouls. Outside the frame of vision, 100%. Is this forcible? Yes. You compare this one to that punt play where we were kind of 60-40, think it was forcible. I mean, look at the way that the receiver's body just compresses into the shoulder of that defender. This is forcible. This is attacking. Now you talk about the mechanics of everything involved. A lot of switches going on. This is the side judge original key that's coming across. So, if you're a deep wing and your guy runs a shallow cross, you obviously want to stay focused in on him for a couple of different reasons. OPI reasons, blindside blocks, this type of action here. We want to see that. And so, but there are some switches going on. So who's, side judge, that guy's going to clear enough time that he may switch over here. So who's going to be seeing this block? Again, this is one of those plays where we have multiple opportunities for someone to pick it up. Okay, there's our switch. There's the hit. Ideally, I think we'd like our deep wings to stay with that receiver a little bit longer. But then again, this is a play that you got a lot of crossing, a lot of things that will switch us up. Field judge key. Can you look in there? You have a guy running deep. Back judge. I think that's a line judge at the top of the screen. Even the headline judge, because that's in the belt and it happens so quickly. I think this is obviously this is a foul that we want to get. I mean, obviously we didn't have this rule in effect in 2018, but if we see this play come up in the future, this is something we've got to be keyed into looking at this. So yes, defense, you are just as liable for blindside blocks, so you can't just blow up an innocent receiver running across the field. So are there any questions, anything we want to talk about in terms of blindside block, in terms of this play, before we wrap things up?
Corey, we had a question, and there's never going to be an absolute answer on this, but talk about if the blocker leads with his hands
on this play.
No, just in general, more of a general question.
Okay. I got you.
Blocker leads with his hands, is it absolutely not going to be deemed forcible?
No. And if I made that impression, I want to take that back. That is just kind of an indicator for us that could be a legal blindside block. And the idea is that if your hands are out in front of you, you have more of a chance to absorb the contact, because you have to think about, let's go back to that TCU OU play where, if they're going opposite directions, you have a chance to, if the hands are extended there, you probably still have a chance for that to be forcible, because that's coming completely from the side. That's going to deliver that force. So no, it is not a set in stone. Hey, his hands were extended. That's not a foul. We have to obviously use that as an indicator to help process the play, and then our judgment will come in from there to say, okay, he caught him with it, he absorbed the hit. But you can, by all means, you can definitely still impart that type of a force on a defender if your hands are out there. So don't let that be, say, oh no, his hands were good, his hands were out, we're all good, because that could get you into trouble. So hopefully that addresses that. What else we got out there?
Yeah, great job breaking that down. There was an element in that pump play where we're talking about reverse mechanics, where the player receiving the block changed his direction a little bit, changed his direction of pursuit. So there was a question about, does that does any of that relieve the blocker when it comes to, the potential for an illegal blindside block?
No, it doesn't relieve them by any stretch of the imagination. The onus and the responsibility is all on that blocker to make this legal. It's completely up to them. And so if, we got that pump play coming up here, and does he change his angle a little bit? Yeah, he kind of flattens out, but that blocker still has a chance to get that out in front. And I think he does a pretty good job considering that, but just because that defender may change his angle of pursuit does not exonerate the blocker by any stretch of the imagination, at least in my opinion. I don't know if there's differing opinions out there or not, so I can't see I'm not seeing the chats out there. So
no, I agree. I agree totally. The onus is on the blocker. I know that Tuta had a question.
Yeah, Corey, on the last play, the Iowa State-Oklahoma play, let's pretend that we did have a flag on the play and the ruling on the field was illegal blindside block with targeting. And then we go to instant replay, and the replay official determines there was no element for targeting. Do we still have an illegal blindside block? Discuss that for us.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And so as with any other, quote unquote, with foul. So if we have roughing the passer with targeting, kick catch interference with targeting, the only aspect, anytime we hear the word targeting announced by a referee, that's going to kick in our replay official, and they goes, okay, got to go to work, got to take a look at this. Now, if a replay official takes off the targeting, whether it be a blindside block with targeting, roughing the pass with targeting, kick catch interference with targeting, whatever you may have, if they take that targeting away, the player can stay in the game. They're not disqualified, but the original foul is not erased. If we have a with foul, so one of the, here, blindside block with targeting, that blindside block, that penalty, that 15 yards would still be enforced, even though the targeting aspect has been removed. So great point to bring that up, because that's something that I think that when we hear, oh, the targeting has been taken off, so everything goes away, that just isn't the case. If we have a with foul, the original, the first part of that penalty, in essence, there's two penalties. There's the blindside block foul, and then there's a targeting foul. So if the targeting goes away, fine, but we still have, in this instance, the blindside block to deal with and to adjudicate. Does that help?
Yes, sir. You lost me with adjudicate, though. We're using these big words again.
Well, I figured you would know that word, big, I figured you know that word. So what else we got out there? Tuta, anything else?
No, I think you covered it well, Corey. And the presentation, I thought you did an excellent job discussing the elements, also discussing how do we evaluate those elements as it pertains to the parameters of the rule, of the illegal blindside block rule. I thought this was an excellent presentation. So I don't know if you want to wrap it up with some words, but I think you did a great job here.
Corey, let me piggyback. The beauty of this presentation was it was totally process driven. Blindside blocks, it's like, is it a foul or is it not? That's basically what we normally talk about. But think about what Corey presented today. All the elements, all the process-oriented elements of how we arrived at making the decision. Awesome job.
Well, thank you. It's that means I should probably ask for a pay raise now, right? So
we'll double. Yeah.
Right, double. Thank you. No, this is. I appreciate y'all letting me have an opportunity to speak on this. It's valuable to me to dig into this, and so hopefully you all out there got one or two things out of this that will help you. If at any point you have any questions over any of the subject material that we've presented in this session or in any session for that matter, please reach out to us, because we'd rather you ask the question and so we can clear things up versus you going out there and saying, gosh, I don't know what they really meant by that. The idea of these sessions is to get everybody kind of on a same page so that when, toe meets leather here in the fall, hopefully we'll be able to go from there. So we have our next session coming up tomorrow at 11 o'clock Mountain, 12 o'clock Central. Kevin Boitman from the SEC will be leading us in a rules session number 4. So if you're signed up for that one, great. If you're not signed up for that, you still have time to get involved with that. So Kevin's a great official. It'd be great to see his presentation. And so with that, thank you everyone for joining us from around the country, from around the world. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you again coming up shortly. Thanks a lot.